When my ex-husband's boss became my unexpected salvation, a journey from betrayal to true love. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the person who destroyed your life accidentally led you to your greatest love? Today's story is about Sarah, a mother who lost everything to her cheating husband, only to find an unexpected ally in the last person she'd expect, her ex-husband's powerful CEO boss. But when revenge, love, and dark secrets collide, Sarah must decide if she can trust her heart again. If you enjoy stories of strong women rising from the ashes and finding love in the most unexpected places, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional journeys every week. Now let's dive into Sarah's incredible transformation from betrayed wife to empowered woman. The courtroom was empty now, silent except for the hollow echo of Sarah Mitchell's breathing. She stood alone in this vast space, her trembling fingers clutching the custody ruling that would change everything. The words blurred through her tears, but their meaning was crystal clear. Temporary loss of primary custody. 6 months ago, she had been a wife, a mother, an artist, with dreams deferred but not forgotten. Now she was just another casualty in her husband's calculated destruction. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Sarah closed her eyes, and suddenly she was back there 6 months earlier, standing in their bedroom with David's phone in her hand, watching her world crumble one text message at a time. 6 months earlier, the house in Westchester had been quiet that Tuesday morning. Too quiet. David had left for his office at Blackwood Industries earlier than usual, forgetting his personal phone on the nightstand, something he'd never done in 12 years of marriage. Sarah had reached for it innocently, intending to drive it to his office when the screen lit up with a message. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to have you all to myself again." Gee, Sarah's heart had stuttered, then raced. Her fingers moved without conscious thought, entering the passcode. Their wedding date. How ironic. The messages unfolded like a nightmare novel, each one more damning than the last. Jessica Chen from accounting. Photos that made Sarah's stomach turn. Plans for trips, mentions of money transfers, and worst of all, discussions about after the divorce. David had been planning this. For months, maybe longer, he'd been systematically moving assets, building a case against her, all while sleeping beside her each night and kissing their children goodbye each morning. Sarah sank onto their bed, his bed now, and scrolled through the evidence of her husband's betrayal. The David in these messages was someone she didn't recognize. Cruel. Calculating. He called her dead weight and artistically delusional. He joked about her abandoned painting career, the one she'd put on hold to raise Emma and Lucas. He complained about being trapped in suburban hell with a woman who'd let herself go after 2 pregnancies. Each word was a knife, but what destroyed her most were his comments about their children. Emma was too sensitive like her mother. Lucas was at least salvageable if I get him away from her influence soon enough. The sound of Emma's voice from downstairs broke through her shock. "Mom, where's my purple backpack?" Sarah's maternal instinct kicked in, overriding her devastation. She quickly took photos of everything on David's phone with her own device, then placed his phone back exactly where she'd found it. Her hands were steady now, her mind sharp with a clarity that comes from having nothing left to lose. "Coming, sweetheart," she called, her voice surprisingly normal. She found Emma in the kitchen, her 10-year-old daughter's dark hair tangled from sleep, those serious brown eyes, David's eyes, scanning the room anxiously. Emma had always been anxious even before any of this. She worried about tests, about friends, about whether the ice caps would melt before she grew up. Sarah had always been her safe harbor. "It's in the mudroom, honey," Sarah said, pouring orange juice with hands that wanted to shake. "Did you finish your science project?" "Dad said he'd help me with it tonight," Emma replied, spreading peanut butter on toast with methodical precision. Everything Emma did was precise, controlled. At 10, she already carried the weight of perfection on her small shoulders. "I'm sure he will." Sarah lied smoothly, knowing David had a client dinner scheduled. Jessica, no doubt. Lucas bounded in then, 6 years old, in perpetual motion, his light hair, Sarah's hair, sticking up in every direction. "Can we have pancakes?" "It's Tuesday, buddy. Pancakes are for Saturdays." "But I want them, no!" He whined, then brightened. "What if I promise to eat all my vegetables at dinner?" Sarah found herself genuinely smiling for the first time that morning. Lucas had David's negotiating instinct, but her artistic soul. He saw the world in possibilities, not limitations. "Nice try, little lawyer," Toast it is. She got them ready for school, packed their lunches, drove them to Riverside Elementary. Emma kissed her cheek quickly, already worried about being seen as babyish. Lucas gave her a bear hug that nearly broke her composure. As she watched them disappear into the building, Sarah made a decision. She would not let David destroy their lives any more than he already had. The drive to Thomas Reed's law office took 30 minutes. She'd found him through a friend of a friend, someone who specialized in high-conflict divorces, particularly when financial malfeasance was involved. His office was in White Plains, modest compared to the Manhattan firms David would undoubtedly hire, but Thomas had a reputation for being both brilliant and relentless. Thomas was in his mid-40s with prematurely silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened without interrupting as Sarah showed him everything, watched him take notes in neat handwriting, saw his jaw tighten when she got to David's comments about the children. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, finally setting down his pen, "I need you to understand something. Your husband isn't just having an affair. Based on these financial discussions, he's been planning what we call divorce rape. He's hidden assets, probably offshore. He's been building a case for custody, likely documenting every time you've been late for pickup, every time the kids have been sick on your watch, every penny you've spent that could be construed as frivolous." Sarah's stomach dropped. "But I'm a good mother. I gave up everything for those children." "I know, and that's exactly what he's counting on. Mothers who sacrifice careers often find themselves at a disadvantage in custody battles. No independent income makes you look dependent. The gap in your resume makes you seem unstable. It's unfair, but it's reality." "So what do I do?" Thomas leaned forward. "We fight, but you need to know it's going to get ugly. David works for Blackwood Industries, correct? They have a legal team that makes sharks look friendly. If he's stealing from them, though, that could be leverage." "Stealing from them?" "These transfers you showed me. Some of these accounts, I've seen this pattern before. He might be using his position to embezzle, but proving it would require resources we don't have." Sarah left Thomas's office feeling simultaneously empowered and terrified. She had a lawyer, a plan, but she was David against Goliath, and she'd never felt smaller. The next 3 weeks were a careful dance of pretense. She smiled at David over dinner, helped him find his cufflinks, even made love to him when he initiated all while documenting everything. She opened her own bank account, started selling her jewelry piece by piece, reached out to old contacts about freelance design work. David never suspected. His arrogance was so complete that it never occurred to him that his mouse of a wife might fight back. The pretense ended on a Thursday. Sarah had just picked up the kids from school when she received the email from Thomas. "He knows. He's filed first. Emergency custody hearing tomorrow. Be at the courthouse at 9 a.m. Her phone rang immediately. David. "Hello, darling." His voice was cold, amused. "I assume you've heard from your discount lawyer. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your little photography session with my phone company IT flagged the unusual activity? Sloppy Sarah. But then you always were. David, please. The children will be better off without your influence. Depression runs in your family, doesn't it? Your mother was hospitalized twice. I've documented your mood swings, your crying jags. That art therapy you've been taking Emma to looks a lot like you're projecting your own instability onto our daughter. You know that's not true. Truth is what I can prove in court. And Sarah, I can prove quite a lot. See you tomorrow." The line went dead. Sarah stood in her kitchen, children chattering about their day, and felt the walls closing in. She made dinner mechanically, spaghetti Lucas's favorite. She helped Emma with her science project, explaining photosynthesis while her mind screamed. She tucked them in, read Lucas 2 stories instead of one, let Emma read past her bedtime. Then she sat in her dark kitchen and cried until she had no tears left. The next morning she dressed carefully. Conservative navy suit, minimal makeup, hair, and a neat bun. She looked like what she was trying to be, a responsible mother. Thomas met her outside the courthouse, his face grim. He's hired Brennan Klein and Associates. They're formidable. The hearing was a massacre. David's legal team painted her as an unstable woman with a family history of mental illness who'd been emotionally manipulating the children, spending recklessly and neglecting their needs while pursuing her artistic fantasies. They had photos. Her at a wine bar with friends, neglectful mother drinking her crying in her car outside Lucas's school. Emotional instability, her art supplies arriving from Amazon financial irresponsibility. They had statements from Emma's teacher about her anxiety twisted to suggest Sarah was the cause rather than the support. David sat there in his $3,000 suit looking every inch the concerned father. He actually dabbed at his eyes when describing how worried he was about the children's well-being. Sarah wanted to scream. This was the man who'd missed Emma's school play for a client emergency that she now knew was Jessica, who'd forgotten Lucas's birthday party because he was hungover from a weekend in Vegas, who'd never once attended a parent-teacher conference or pediatrician appointment. But the judge, an older man who seemed impressed by David's success and credentials, saw none of that. He saw a successful businessman trying to protect his children from an unstable soon-to-be ex-wife. Temporary custody is awarded to Mr. Mitchell, the judge announced. Mrs. Mitchell will have supervised visitation every other weekend pending psychological evaluation. Supervised visitation. Like she was a danger to her own children. Sarah couldn't breathe. The room spun. She heard Thomas arguing something about appeals and evidence, but the roaring in her ears drowned everything out. She stood to leave, needing air, needing escape, and collided with someone in the doorway. The impact sent her files, flying papers scattering across the marble floor. Strong hands steadied her, and she looked up into eyes the color of storm clouds. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, dropping to gather her papers, trying to hide the tears streaming down her face. The man knelt beside her, helping collect the scattered documents. His suit was expensive, more expensive than David's, and he moved with a controlled grace that spoke of power held in check. "No need to apologize. These things happen." His voice was deep-cultured with a hint of something Sarah couldn't place. Sadness, maybe, or recognition. "Custody hearing," he asked quietly, handing her a paper that clearly showed the ruling. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "Judge Williamson," the man noted, looking at the document. "He tends to favor fathers with financial stability. Outdated thinking, but persistent." "Do you work here?" Sarah managed. "Sometimes. Business matters mostly." He stood, offering her a hand up. "Alexander Blackwood." Sarah froze. Blackwood. As in Blackwood Industries. As in David's boss. As in the CEO of one of the largest corporations in New York. "You're David Mitchell's wife," Alexander said, recognition dawning. His expression shifted, became unreadable. "Sarah." "I should go," Sarah said quickly, backing away. The last thing she needed was David's boss witnessing her humiliation. "Wait." Alexander's voice was commanding, but not unkind. "My office is across the street. You look like you could use a moment to collect yourself before facing the world." Sarah wanted to refuse, but she caught a glimpse of herself in the courthouse window. Mascara-streaked face blotchy, the picture of defeat. She couldn't let David see her like this, or worse, let him see her with his boss. That's very kind, but..." "It's not kindness," Alexander said simply. "It's strategy. David is watching from the coffee shop across the plaza. If you leave now looking like this, he wins more than just custody." Sarah looked and saw David through the coffee shop window, Jessica beside him, both watching with undisguised satisfaction. "Why would you help me?" she asked. Alexander's smile was sharp as winter. "Let's just say David Mitchell and I have some unfinished business. And enemy of my enemy, Mrs. Mitchell." He offered his arm, formally old-fashioned. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah took it, straightening her spine and lifting her chin. They walked past the coffee shop, and she had the satisfaction of seeing David's smug expression falter. Alexander's office building was a testament to understated power, marble and glass and clean lines. His personal office occupied the entire top floor with views that stretched to the Hudson. He gestured her to a leather chair, poured water from a crystal pitcher, then sat behind his desk. "I'm going to tell you something in confidence," he began. "David Mitchell has been stealing from my company. $2 million, possibly more. We've been building a case for 6 months. Sarah's mind reeled. 6 months? But that's when he started the affair with Jessica Chen. Yes, she's my cousin, Mrs. Mitchell, placed in accounting specifically to monitor David's activities. The room tilted. Your cousin, she's been sleeping with my husband to catch him stealing. No, Alexander said firmly. She was supposed to get close enough to access his files. The personal relationship was her choice against my explicit instructions. Jessica is impulsive. She develops genuine feelings when she shouldn't. Genuine feelings? Sarah repeated numbly. She destroyed my family for genuine feelings. David destroyed your family. Alexander corrected. Jessica was just the weapon he chose. If not her, it would have been someone else. The embezzlement started before she arrived. Sarah absorbed this, her mind racing. Why are you telling me this? Alexander was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city below. Because I know what it's like to lose everything to someone else's greed. Because David Mitchell took something from me once, though he doesn't know I know. And because you don't deserve what's happening to you. What did he take? Alexander's jaw tightened. My family. 5 years ago. A drunk driving accident on Route 9. The driver was never caught, but I had my suspicions. Security footage from a gas station showed a black BMW with a particular customization. Carbon fiber spoiler, specific to a limited edition model. David drives that exact car. The next day he reported it stolen, collected insurance, and bought a new one. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Your wife and daughter? Catherine and Lily. Lily was 5. Emma's age now, actually. The pain in his voice was carefully controlled but unmistakable. Sarah understood now. The sadness she'd sensed the recognition. He saw his own loss reflected in hers. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I've waited 5 years for proof, for justice. The embezzlement gave me a legitimate reason to investigate him thoroughly. But watching him destroy you, seeing him use your children as weapons, I can't stand by anymore. Alexander opened a drawer, pulled out a thick folder. This is everything we have on the embezzlement. Financial records, emails, transaction histories. It's enough to send him to prison for 10 to 15 years. Why haven't you? Because once I do, it becomes criminal, not civil. He'll hide behind lawyers, claim ignorance, drag it out for years. But if you were to use this in your divorce proceedings, Sarah understood. It becomes leverage. He gives me my children back or he goes to prison. Exactly. But there's a catch. There always was. What do you need? My mother is pushing me toward an arranged marriage, a merger disguised as romance with the Hartley shipping fortune. I need 6 months to find a way out of it without destroying our business relationship. If I had a fiancé, you want me to pretend to be engaged to you. I want us to help each other. You get your children back, financial security, and revenge on David. I get freedom from my mother's matchmaking and the satisfaction of watching David lose everything. Sarah stood pacing to the window. Below, the city moved in its endless rhythm, unaware of the deal being brokered in the sky above. She thought of Emma's anxious face, Lucas's bedtime hug, supervised visitation. What about Jessica, your cousin? She'll have to choose, family or David. I suspect when she learns the full truth about him, the choice will be clear. Sarah turned to face him. This beautiful, damaged man offering her salvation wrapped in revenge. When would we start? Tonight. There's a charity gala. Blackwood Industries is the primary sponsor. David will be there with Jessica. Imagine his face when you walk in on my arm. A small, vindictive part of Sarah thrilled at the thought. But the mother in her worried. My children, this could confuse them. We'll be careful. Gradual. Let them adjust at their own pace. I would never hurt children, Mrs. Mitchell. Never. The vehemence in his voice convinced her. This was a man who understood the sacred nature of parenthood, who'd had it ripped away from him. Call me Sarah, she said. And I'll need a dress. Alexander smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, hinting at the man he'd been, before loss carved him hollow. I know just the place. The rest of the afternoon blurred. A visit to a boutique where the saleswomen knew Alexander by name and didn't blink when he requested their best. A stop at a salon where her hair was transformed from mom practical to elegantly swept up. Jewelry appeared. Loans from the company collection. Alexander explained, though the diamonds looked very real. By 7 o'clock, Sarah stood before a mirror and didn't recognize herself. The woman looking back was sophisticated, elegant, powerful. The midnight blue gown hugged curves she'd forgotten she had. The jewelry caught the light like captured stars. She looked like someone who belonged on Alexander Blackwood's arm. You're beautiful, Alexander said simply from the doorway. He was in a tuxedo now, and Sarah's breath caught. He was devastating, all dark hair and sharp angles and controlled power. It's just pretend, she reminded herself as much as him. The best lies are mostly truth, he replied, offering his arm. The gala was at the Metropolitan Museum because of course it was. Sarah had attended events there with David, but always as the +1, the afterthought wife who stood quietly while he networked. Tonight was different. Tonight she entered on the arm of the most powerful man in the room, and everyone noticed. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Cameras flashed. And across the room by the bar, David Mitchell nearly dropped his champagne. Sarah watched her husband's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, disbelief, rage. Jessica stood beside him in a red dress that was trying too hard her hand on his arm, but his attention was entirely on Sarah. "Steady," Alexander murmured. "Let him come to us." It didn't take long. David approached with Jessica trailing behind his face arranged in a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Alexander," he said smoothly, "I didn't expect to see you here with my wife." "Soon-to-be ex-wife," Sarah corrected, surprising herself with her steady voice. "And my fiancé," Alexander added casually, his hand settling possessively on Sarah's waist. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Jessica gasped. David's face went white, then red. "That's impossible," David sputtered. "You just met. The hearing was this morning." "Actually," Alexander said, his tone conversational, "Sarah and I have known each other for some time. We kept it quiet for the children's sake, but given today's ruling, there seemed no point in hiding anymore." "You're lying." David's voice was rising, drawing attention. "Sarah, what are you playing at? You think this will help your case? Sleeping with my boss? Careful, Mitchell." Alexander's voice dropped dangerously. "You're speaking about the future Mrs. Blackwood." David laughed ugly and sharp. "This is ridiculous. Sarah's having some kind of breakdown. Yesterday she was crying in court about her children. Today she's engaged. No judge will buy this." "No," Sarah said quietly, finding her voice. "Yesterday I was freed from a man who's been systematically destroying me for months. Today I'm with someone who actually sees my worth." She turned to Jessica, who looked stunned and somehow younger than her 28 years. "I hope he's worth it. Though you should know you're not the first. Check his phone for the others. Marina from the gym. Kelly from the country club. You're just the one he chose to go public with because you were convenient." It was a guess, but David's expression confirmed it. Jessica's face crumbled. "Alexander," she whispered. "Is this true?" Alexander regarded his cousin with disappointment. "We'll discuss your choices later, Jessica. Privately." The crowd was definitely watching now, sensing drama. David grabbed Sarah's arm, his fingers digging in. "You think you've won something," he hissed. "I'll bury you in court. Mental instability, abandonment, now this obvious gold-digging attempt. You'll never see our children again." Alexander moved so fast, David didn't see it coming. Suddenly, David's hand was off Sarah's arm and bent at an uncomfortable angle behind his back. "Touch her again," Alexander said softly, his lips barely moving, "and I'll destroy more than just your career. And speaking of your career, you might want to check with accounting. Some discrepancies have been found. $2 million worth of discrepancies." David's face went gray. "You can't prove anything." "Can't I?" Alexander released him with a small push. "Enjoy the party, Mitchell. It might be your last as a free man." He guided Sarah away, her arm linked through his, feeling the eyes of the entire room on them. They made their way to the terrace, where the cool night air hit Sarah's heated face. "I can't breathe," she gasped, gripping the railing. Alexander produced a handkerchief, who still carried handkerchiefs, and gently dabbed at her forehead. "You did beautifully. He's going to make this worse. The children—" "No," Alexander said firmly. "He's going to realize he's been outmaneuvered and negotiate. Men like David are cowards at heart. When faced with real consequences, they fold." Sarah wanted to believe him. In the moonlight, Alexander looked younger, less controlled. She could see traces of the man he'd been before loss reshaped him. "Why did you really choose me?" she asked. Of all the ways to get revenge on David, why this? Alexander was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then softly, "Because when I saw you in that courthouse, I saw myself 5 years ago. Lost, broken, alone. And I remembered how desperately I wished someone, anyone, had offered me a hand up instead of pity or judgment. So this is charity." "No." He turned to face her, and his eyes were intense, almost frightening in their focus. "This is redemption. Yours and mine both." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted from inside. They rushed back to find Jessica in tears, shouting at David while security held them apart. "You said you loved me," Jessica cried. "You said your wife was cold, that you hadn't been happy in years. But she's right, isn't she? Marina from the gym? She texted while you were in the bathroom. You're supposed to meet her tomorrow." David tried to calm her, but Jessica was beyond reason. "And the money, you said it was bonuses, that Alexander approved it all. But you were stealing, weren't you?" "You used me." The security guards escorted them both out, David protesting loudly about conspiracies and setups. The party gradually resumed, though the gossip would fuel New York society for months. Alexander steered Sarah to a quiet corner. "Are you all right?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "I should feel victorious, but I just feel empty." "The first cut is the deepest," Alexander said. "But you survived it. The rest is just healing." A woman approached them, older, regal, with Alexander's same gray eyes and aristocratic features. Margaret Blackwood's Sarah realized with a start. "So," Margaret said, examining Sarah with sharp intelligence, "you're the woman who's finally caught my son's attention." Alexander tensed. "Mother." "Don't mother me. I've been watching you mope for 5 years. Then suddenly you're engaged to David Mitchell's wife." Margaret's gaze never left Sarah's face. "You're either very brave or very foolish, my dear." "Probably both," Sarah admitted. Margaret's face softened marginally. "Good. Alexander needs someone who can match him. The Hartley girl would have bored him senseless." She paused. "You have children?" "2. Emma and Lucas." "I had 2 once," Margaret said quietly. "Alexander and his sister Sophia. She died at 15, leukemia. There's a particular kind of strength required to mother in the face of loss, Mrs. Mitchell. I suspect you have it." She swept away before Sarah could respond, leaving them alone again. "Your sister?" Sarah asked gently. "A long time ago. Before Catherine, before everything." Alexander checked his watch. "It's nearly 10. You should get home to the children." Reality crashed back. Home. Where David might already be poisoning Emma and Lucas against her. As if reading her mind, Alexander said, "I've had security watching the house." David went to a hotel. "The children are with your neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Not related to Jessica, before you ask." Sarah's relief was overwhelming. "Thank you." The drive home was quiet, Alexander's driver navigating the familiar streets while Sarah processed everything that had happened. In 12 hours, she'd gone from losing everything to gaining an unlikely ally. Alexander walked her to the door, every inch the gentleman. "The children. Asleep at Mrs. Chen's. I'll get them in the morning. Then rest. Tomorrow we strategize." He turned to leave, then paused. "Sarah, that moment in the courthouse when you stood up despite everything, that's when I knew you were strong enough for what comes next." After he left, Sarah stood in her empty house. Their house, David's house, who knew anymore, and let herself feel everything she'd suppressed all day. The betrayal, the fear, the strange attraction to Alexander that she didn't want to examine too closely. She climbed the stairs to Emma's room, stood in the doorway looking at the empty bed. Her daughter's anxiety journal lay open on the nightstand. Sarah knew she shouldn't read it, but she couldn't help herself. The latest entry was from yesterday. "Mom and Dad think I don't know they're getting divorced. Dad's been acting weird, and Mom cries when she thinks we're asleep. I'm scared we'll have to choose. I don't want to choose. I just want things to go back to normal. But maybe normal was already broken and I just didn't see it." Sarah clutched the journal to her chest and made a promise. Whatever it took, whatever deals she had to make, she would protect her children from the worst of this. In Lucas's room, his stuffed dinosaur stood guard over an empty bed. He'd taken Mr. Rex to Mrs. Chen's, but the others waited patiently for his return. On his dresser was a photo from last Christmas, all 4 of them in matching pajamas. David's smile perfect and empty. Sarah's trying too hard, the children oblivious to the cracks already forming. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. "Check your email." She opened it to find a message from Thomas Reed. "Emergency custody hearing overturned. New hearing scheduled for Monday. David's attorney filed a motion citing your erratic behavior at the gala. Be prepared." A second email followed this one from Alexander. "I've retained Stanford, Klein, and Morris for your representation. Ellen Stanford will contact you tomorrow. She's never lost a custody case." Sarah sank onto Lucas's bed, overwhelmed. In trying to save her, Alexander might have made things worse. David would spin this engagement as proof of her instability, her unfitness as a mother. Her phone rang. "Alexander." "You saw the emails," he said without preamble. "This is what David wanted, to make me look crazy. No, this is David panicking. Ellen Stanford is the best family lawyer in the state. She'll destroy him. With what? His money, his reputation. The judge already favored him. With the truth. Sarah, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Could she? This man she'd met 12 hours ago who offered salvation with one hand and complications with the other. My children come first, she said. Always. I wouldn't expect anything else. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we go to war. After hanging up, Sarah walked to her own bedroom. Not theirs anymore, just hers. The sheets still smelled like David's cologne. She stripped them off, threw them in the hallway, and remade the bed with fresh linens from the guest room. Then she sat at her old easel, dusty from neglect, and did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She picked up a brush. The painting that emerged was abstract, all dark swirls and sharp edges with a single point of silver light breaking through. It was rage and hope and fear all mixed together. It was the death of who she'd been and the birth of who she was becoming. When the sun rose, Sarah was still painting her dress from the gala crumpled on the floor, her hair wild paint under her fingernails. She looked at what she'd created, raw, honest, powerful, and smiled. David had been wrong about one thing. She wasn't delusional about her art. She was just getting started. The law offices of Stanford, Klein, and Morris occupied 3 floors of a Manhattan high-rise, all glass and steel and barely contained power. Sarah sat in the conference room, her new legal team spread before her like generals planning a war. Ellen Stanford was nothing like Sarah had expected. Instead of the harsh, aggressive attorney she'd imagined, Ellen was soft-spoken, grandmotherly, with silver hair and kind eyes. But when she smiled, Sarah saw the shark beneath. Mrs. Mitchell, Ellen began, I've reviewed your case. David's attorney is good, but he's also arrogant. He's banking on judge bias and your emotional response. We're going to give him neither. How? By showing exactly who David Mitchell really is. The embezzlement helps, but it's not enough. We need to demonstrate a pattern of deception, manipulation, and parental negligence. Ellen pulled out a tablet. Tell me about Emma's anxiety. When did it start? About 2 years ago. She started having panic attacks, couldn't sleep. The pediatrician recommended therapy. And David's response, see, Sarah thought back. He said she was being dramatic, that I was coddling her. He refused to attend any therapy sessions, said it was a waste of money. Ellen made notes. What about Lucas? David barely acknowledges him unless it's for photo opportunities. Last year, Lucas had a fever of 104, and David left for a golf weekend anyway. Said I could handle it. Good. Pattern of neglect. Now about this engagement to Alexander Blackwood. Sarah's cheeks heated. It's complicated. I'm sure it is. Ellen's tone was dry. But legally it's irrelevant unless David can prove it predates the separation. Can he? No, we met yesterday, at the courthouse. Ellen raised an eyebrow. You got engaged to a man you met yesterday. It's a business arrangement, Sarah admitted, then explained the deal. Ellen listened without judgment. Unconventional but not illegal, and Alexander Blackwood's reputation is impeccable. His involvement actually helps your case. It shows you're thinking strategically about your future stability. She paused. Is that all it is? Business? Sarah didn't know how to answer that. The memory of Alexander's hand on her waist, his fierce protection at the gala, the pain in his eyes when he spoke of his family. It was already more than business, though she couldn't define what it was becoming. For now, she said finally. Fair enough. Now let's discuss strategy. They spent 3 hours building their case. Ellen had investigators documenting David's affairs, his spending his absence from school events. They had the embezzlement evidence as a nuclear option. They had character witnesses, teachers, neighbors, the pediatrician who'd treated Lucas's fevers alone with Sarah too many times to count. As Sarah was leaving, her phone buzzed. Alexander. Can you come to my office? There's something you need to see. Sarah found Alexander in his top-floor sanctuary, but he wasn't alone. Jessica Chen sat in one of the leather chairs, her face puffy from crying, looking younger and more vulnerable than Sarah had ever seen her. Sarah, Jessica started, then stopped clearly, unsure what to say. Jessica has something to tell you, Alexander said, his tone neutral but his eyes watchful. Jessica took a shuddering breath. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I am. I didn't. When Alexander asked me to get close to David, I thought it would be easy. Just flirt a little, get access to his files. But he was so charming, so focused on me. He said things She stopped, wrapped her arms around herself. I was an idiot. Despite everything, Sarah felt a pang of sympathy. She remembered being 28, desperate to be loved, willing to believe pretty words from pretty liars. He's good at that, Sarah said quietly, making you feel like you're the only person in the world who matters, until you're not useful anymore. Jessica nodded miserably. The other women, Marina Kelly, there are more. He had us all categorized in his phone. I was Asian persuasion. Her voice cracked. I thought I was special. We all did, Sarah said, surprising herself with the we, but it was true. She'd been just as fooled, just as used. Jessica has agreed to testify, Alexander said, about the embezzlement, the affairs, everything. He'll destroy me, Jessica whispered. My reputation, my career? No, Alexander said firmly. He won't, because if he tries, I'll destroy him first. Your family, Jessica. Foolish family, but family nonetheless. Jessica started crying again, and Sarah found herself moving forward, offering tissues. It was surreal comforting her husband's mistress, but Sarah recognized a fellow victim of David's manipulation. There's more, Jessica said, wiping her eyes. The custody thing. David's been planning it for over a year. He has a whole file on you, Sarah. Photos, recordings, manufactured evidence. He was going to leave you with nothing. Recordings, Alexander's voice sharpened, of Sarah having what he called breakdowns, but were really just being human, crying after her dad died, getting frustrated with the kids. Normal stuff, but edited to look bad. Sarah felt sick. Her father had died 18 months ago. David had held her while she sobbed, told her it was okay to grieve, and he'd been recording it. Where are these recordings? Alexander demanded. His laptop, in his office here. He thinks it's secure because of the company encryption, but... Jessica pulled out a flash drive. I have admin access. Alexander took the drive, plugged it into his computer. File after file appeared. Audio recordings, videos, photos. Sarah watched herself on the screen, exhausted after Lucas's surgery, snapping at Emma to please just eat her dinner. Another of her drinking wine with friends, laughing too loudly, taken out of context to look like alcoholism. My God, she breathed. How long was he planning this? According to the metadata, Alexander said his jaw tight, 2 years. 2 years. Before Emma's anxiety. Before Lucas started school. Their marriage had been a performance, and she'd never known she was on stage. We can use this, Alexander said. Show the judge how calculated this was. No loving father documents his wife's grief to use against her. Sarah nodded, but she felt hollow. Every memory of the last 2 years was tainted now. Every moment of vulnerability had been a weapon David was sharpening. I should go, Jessica said, standing. I'm staying with my parents for a while, away from all this. She paused at the door. Sarah, for what it's worth, he talked about you constantly, even when we were together, comparing me to you, things you did better, ways I fell short. I think in his twisted way he couldn't let you go even while pushing you away. After she left, Sarah sank into the chair Jessica had vacated. I feel like I'm drowning. Alexander moved from behind his desk, sat in the chair beside her instead of across from her. You're not drowning. You're swimming through a riptide. The key is not to fight directly against it. Speaking from experience. Every day for 5 years. He was quiet for a moment. Would you like to see something? She nodded, and he led her to a door she hadn't noticed before, hidden in the wood paneling. Inside was a smaller room, more intimate, with photos covering one wall. Catherine and Lily Blackwood smiled from dozens of frames. Catherine was blonde, delicate with a laughing face. Lily was all dark curls and mischief, her father's eyes in miniature. They're beautiful, Sarah whispered. Lily would have been 10 this year. Emma's age. Alexander traced a finger over a photo of Lily on a swing. She was afraid of heights, but pretended she wasn't. Used to climb trees just to prove she could then get stuck and cry until I rescued her. Sarah understood then. It wasn't just revenge driving Alexander. It was the ghost of the daughter David had stolen the future Emma represented, a child to protect when he'd failed to protect his own. Tell me about Catherine, she said softly. She was light. Where I was serious, she laughed. Where I planned, she improvised. She made me human. He smiled sadly. She would have liked you. Your strength, your devotion to your children. She was the same. How do you stand it? The loss. Some days I don't. Some days I come here and talk to them. Tell Lily about my day, ask Catherine's advice. Madness, probably. No, Sarah said. Love. It's love. They stood there quietly, surrounded by ghosts and possibilities. Then Alexander's phone rang, shattering the moment. Blackwood. His face darkened as he listened. Where when, don't let them leave. He hung up. David's at your house. With the children. He picked them up from school early. Sarah's blood turned to ice. He's not supposed to. The court order. I know. My security is there, but they can't intervene without cause. We need to go. The drive to Westchester was the longest of Sarah's life. She called Ellen Stanford, who promised to get an emergency order. She called the school, who apologetically explained that David was still listed as an authorized pickup. She called Mrs. Chen, who said she'd seen David's car but thought it was approved. When they pulled up to the house, David's BMW was in the driveway. Through the window, Sarah could see him in the living room with Emma and Lucas. They looked confused, but not distressed. I'll go in alone, Sarah said. No, Alexander said firmly. We go together. He's less likely to cause a scene with a witness. They entered through the front door Sarah had once considered sacred, the entrance to their family home, their safe space. Now it felt like entering a war zone. Mommy! Lucas ran to her, wrapping himself around her legs. Daddy said we're going on a trip. Emma stood back, her anxious eyes darting between the adults. Mom, what's happening? Hello, Sarah, David said smoothly. And Alexander, how nice of you to join us. The children need to pack, David continued as if this was normal. We're going to my mother's house for a while, until things settle down. You're in violation of the custody order, Sarah said, keeping her voice calm for the children. The custody order that gives me primary custody? I think not. David's smile was sharp. I'm taking my children somewhere stable away from their mother's obvious mental breakdown and inappropriate relationship. Daddy, what breakdown? Emma asked, her voice small. Nothing, sweetheart, Sarah said quickly. Daddy's confused. Am I? David pulled out his phone, showed a video. It was from the gala, Sarah looking disheveled, being comforted by Alexander. Is this the behavior of a stable mother? Getting engaged to a stranger the day she loses custody. You're scaring the children, Alexander said quietly, but there was steel beneath the calm. I'm protecting them, from her influence and yours. David's mask slipped, showing the rage beneath. Did you think I wouldn't find out about your little revenge plot using my wife to get to me? Ex-wife, Sarah corrected, finding her spine. And no one's using anyone, unlike you, David. Emma made a small sound of distress. Sarah immediately went to her, ignoring David's attempt to block her. Honey, it's okay. Sometimes adults disagree, but we both love you so much. I don't want to go to Grandma's, Emma whispered. I have therapy tomorrow. Dr. Martinez says I'm making progress. You don't need therapy, David snapped. You need discipline and a stable home. Emma flinched and something in Sarah snapped. Stop it, she said, standing and facing David. You will not invalidate our daughter's mental health needs because they're inconvenient for your narrative. Our daughter? You mean the daughter you've turned into a nervous wreck with your hovering and anxiety. The daughter who developed anxiety when her father started treating our home like a hotel and her mother like staff, Sarah shot back. Lucas started crying, confused and scared. Alexander moved, then smoothly picking up the little boy. Hey, buddy, he said gently. Want to see something cool? Through tears, Lucas nodded. Alexander pulled out his phone, showed him something that made the boy's eyes widen. Is that a robot? It is. I build them sometimes. Would you like to learn? While Alexander distracted Lucas, Sarah faced off with David. Please, she said quietly. Whatever you think of me, don't do this to them. Emma has therapy. Lucas has his routine. They need stability. Stability. David laughed. You're shacking up with my boss and talking about stability. I'm trying to rebuild what you destroyed. I destroyed you let yourself go, Sarah. You stopped trying. You became a ghost haunting our marriage, and you wonder why I looked elsewhere. The words hurt, but not as much as they would have even yesterday. Because now she knew the truth. He'd been planning his exit while she was still fighting for their marriage. I became what you needed, she said. Quiet, accommodating, invisible. But that's over now. The doorbell rang. Ellen Stanford entered with 2 police officers. Mr. Mitchell, Ellen said pleasantly, I have an emergency custody order. You're to return the children to their mother immediately and maintain the supervised visitation schedule. David's face went purple. This is ridiculous. You can't. I can and I have. Officers, please escort Mr. Mitchell out. David looked at the police at Sarah. His control was slipping and everyone could see it. This isn't over, he told Sarah. You think you've won something, I'll bury you. You and him both. David, Alexander said quietly, still holding Lucas. Think very carefully about your next move. Prison doesn't suit anyone, but it would suit you particularly poorly. The threat was veiled but clear. David looked at Alexander, holding his son at Sarah, standing strong at Emma, watching everything with 2 knowing eyes. I'll see you in court, he said finally, and left. The moment the door closed, Sarah's knees gave out. She sank onto the couch, Emma immediately curling into her side. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? Emma asked. Yes, baby. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Emma said, surprising her. It's better than the pretending. The pretending was scarier. Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah thought holding her daughter tighter. Lucas wiggled out of Alexander's arms and joined the cuddle pile. Is Mr. Alexander going to be our new daddy? Nobody, Sarah said quickly. Nobody's replacing Daddy. But he builds robots, Lucas said, as if this was the most important factor. Alexander stood awkwardly by the door. I should go. Stay, Emma said suddenly. Please, you made Lucas stop crying. Mom cries less when you're here too. Sarah's face burned, but Alexander just smiled gently. How about I order pizza? Nobody makes good decisions on an empty stomach. The evening that followed was surreal in its normalcy. Alexander, billionaire CEO, sitting on Sarah's floor, helping Lucas build a Lego set. Emma showing him her anxiety journal, explaining her coping mechanisms with startling maturity. Sarah watching from the kitchen, making salad to go with the pizza, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. He's nice, Emma said later after Alexander had gone and Lucas was asleep. Different from Dad. Different how? He listens. When I was talking about my anxiety, he actually heard me. Dad always looked like he was thinking about something else. Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind Emma's ear. You know this is complicated, right, Alexander and I? Are you really engaged? We're figuring things out. Emma was quiet for a moment. Mom, did Dad ever love us? Really love us, not just Facebook photo love? Sarah's heart broke. I think he loved us the only way he knew how. Some people just don't have as much love to give. Alexander lost his little girl, didn't he? I heard him talking to Lucas about heaven. Yes, he did. Maybe that's why he has so much extra love, because he saved it all up with nowhere to put it. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at her wisdom. Maybe you're right. After Emma was asleep, Sarah sat in her kitchen with a glass of wine processing the day. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Are you okay? She thought about it. Was she okay? Her husband was trying to destroy her. She was in a fake engagement with a grieving widower. Her children were confused and hurting. But for the first time in 2 years, she felt like herself again. I'm getting there, she texted back. The children are remarkable. You've done well with them. Emma thinks you have extra love saved up. There was a long pause before his response. Out of the mouths of babes. Sarah smiled despite everything. Then her phone rang. Thomas Reed. Sarah, I've been reviewing the files Ellen sent me. There's something you need to know. David's been in contact with someone at Child Protective Services. He's planning to file a report. What on what grounds? Neglect and endangerment. Citing your sudden engagement to Alexander as evidence of poor judgment that puts the children at risk. Sarah's stomach churned. Can he do that? Anyone can make a report. It won't stick. You're clearly a devoted mother. But the investigation process itself could be traumatic for the children. After hanging up, Sarah called Alexander immediately. He's going to call CPS, she said without preamble. I know. I have contacts there. We'll be ready. Alexander paused. Sarah, I need to ask you something. This arrangement between us, we may need to make it more convincing. CPS will investigate me too as your fiancé. They'll look for evidence this is real. What are you saying? I'm saying we may need to actually date, publicly. Let the children get to know me gradually. Show a stable planned transition, not a sudden change. Sarah looked at the Lego set on her floor, the pizza boxes in her recycling, the normal evening Alexander had somehow created from chaos. "Okay," she said. "For the children." "For the children," he agreed, though something in his voice suggested it wasn't just for them anymore. The next morning brought Ellen Stanford and a war council. She'd assembled a team of experts, a child psychologist, a financial advisor, a public relations specialist. "David's going scorched earth," Ellen explained. "We need to be ready for anything." Dr. Patricia Williams, the child psychologist, had reviewed Emma's therapy records. The anxiety clearly predates any recent changes. If anything, Emma's shown improvement since the separation began. The removal of persistent tension in the home has been beneficial. The financial advisor had traced David's hidden assets, offshore accounts, shell companies, a web of deception that boggled Sarah's mind. "He's hidden approximately $8 million, the advisor explained. "Combined with the embezzlement from Blackwood Industries, he's looking at serious federal charges if this comes to light." "Then why hasn't he backed down?" Sarah asked. "Pride," Alexander said from the doorway. He'd arrived sometime during the meeting, silent, as always. "And rage. He's not thinking clearly anymore." Ellen nodded. "Which we'll use against him. Angry people make mistakes." As if on cue, Sarah's phone rang. "David." "Put it on speaker," Ellen instructed. "Hello, David." "You poisonous bitch." His voice was slurred, drinking already, and it wasn't even noon. "You think you've won? I just got fired. Blackwood fired me." Sarah looked at Alexander, who shrugged. He was stealing. What did he expect? "This is your fault," David continued, "yours and his. But I've got news for you, Sarah. I've already called CPS, told them all about your mental health issues, your new boyfriend who's probably a pedophile." "David," Sarah gasped. "What? It's suspicious, isn't it? Rich older man suddenly interested in a used-up suburban mom. He's either after the kids or using you to get to me." Ellen was recording everything, her expression satisfied. This was evidence of malicious intent, false reporting, defamation. "David, you're drunk. Stop talking before you say something you can't take back." "Too late for that. I'm going to destroy you, Sarah. You and your kids and your fake boyfriend. I'm going to—" Alexander took the phone. "Mitchell, this is Blackwood. You're being recorded. You've just admitted to making false reports to CPS and made defamatory statements. Continue, and I'll own everything you've ever touched." There was silence. Then the line went dead. "Well," Ellen said cheerfully, "that was helpful. Thank you, David." But Sarah didn't feel victorious. She felt afraid. David cornered was dangerous. She'd seen him destroy competitors, former friends who'd crossed him. He was vindictive and patient and cruel. "I need to prepare the children," she said. "If CPS is coming—" "They'll come today or tomorrow," Dr. Williams said. "I'll be here to help. The children need to know they can be honest, but that they're safe." Sarah spent the afternoon talking to Emma and Lucas, explaining in age-appropriate terms what might happen. Emma took it with her usual anxious processing, asking detailed questions. Lucas just wanted to know if the social workers would let him keep his dinosaurs. "Of course, baby. No one's taking anything from you." "Promise?" His big eyes were too worried for a 6-year-old. "Promise." Alexander arrived that evening with dinner and a surprise, a small robot he'd built for Lucas. "It responds to voice commands," he explained, showing Lucas how to make it walk and dance. Lucas was enraptured. Emma watched Alexander closely, and Sarah could see her daughter's analytical mind at work. "Why are you helping us?" Emma asked suddenly. Alexander considered her seriously. "Because it's the right thing to do." "But there's more, isn't there? You're sad about something. About someone." Alexander glanced at Sarah, who nodded slightly. "I had a daughter once," he said gently. "Her name was Lily. She was 5 when she died." Emma absorbed this. "Is that why you're nice to Lucas, because you miss having a little kid?" "Partly, but also because Lucas is Lucas, and he deserves kindness regardless of my past." Emma nodded, satisfied. "I'm sorry about Lily." "Thank you." Later, after the children were asleep, Sarah and Alexander sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Emma's very perceptive," he said. "She gets it from her anxiety, ironically. She's always watching, analyzing, trying to predict what might go wrong. A survival mechanism." "Yes." Sarah pulled her cardigan closer. "Alexander, what are we doing, really? Originally using each other. Now—" He turned to look at her. "Now I don't know. The lines are blurring." "For me, too. she admitted. He reached over, took her hand. His fingers were warm, calloused from whatever mysterious activities billionaires did in their spare time. Whatever happens with David with the courts, I want you to know. I'll protect them, Emma and Lucas. They won't suffer for our choices. I know, Sarah said, and realized she meant it. She trusted this complicated, damaged man with her children's welfare. The next morning, CPS arrived. 2 social workers, kind but thorough, interviewed each family member separately. They looked through the house, checked the refrigerator, examined the children's rooms. Emma answered their questions with poise beyond her years. Lucas showed them his robot and dinosaur collection. Sarah provided documentation, medical records, school reports, therapy notes. And Mr. Blackwood, the senior social worker asked. What is his role here? He's Mom's boyfriend, Lucas piped up. He builds robots and doesn't yell. The social workers exchanged glances. Doesn't yell, Dad yells, Lucas explained matter-of-factly. When he's here, everybody whispers. When Alexander's here, we can be loud. From the mouths of babes again. The social workers left with promises to follow up. Dr. Williams, who'd observed everything, was optimistic. They saw a stable home with happy, healthy children. David's report won't stand. But David wasn't done. That afternoon, photographers appeared outside the house. By evening, pictures of Sarah and Alexander were all over social media with headlines like Gold Digger Mom Seduces Billionaire Boss and Custody Battle Turned Scandalous. Emma came home from school in tears. Everyone's talking about it. They're saying horrible things about you. Sarah held her daughter, fury burning in her chest. David had crossed a line involving the children's social world. Alexander arrived within an hour of Sarah's call, bringing his own PR team. We control the narrative now, he said. David wants to play it in public, fine. The next day, a different story emerged. Billionaire CEO stands by single mother against abusive ex. The article placed in the Times told Sarah's story with dignity. A devoted mother, a charitable artist who'd put her career on hold, now facing a vindictive ex-husband's attempts to destroy her. Alexander's mother, Margaret, gave an exclusive interview praising Sarah's strength and devotion to her children. Jessica Chen came forward publicly about David's manipulation and the embezzlement. Within 48 hours, public opinion had shifted. David's attempts to paint Sarah as unstable backfired spectacularly, but the stress was taking its toll. Sarah wasn't sleeping, barely eating. The constant vigilance, the fear of what David might do next, was exhausting. She was painting at 3 a.m. when Alexander found her. He'd taken to staying in the guest room, a presence that comforted the children, and honestly her, too. Can't sleep, she laughed bitterly. Sleep is for people whose exes aren't trying to destroy them. He studied her painting, darker than before, all reds and blacks with violent strokes. You're angry. I'm furious. He's hurting our children to hurt me. What kind of father does that? A broken one. Sarah turned to him, surprised. You're defending him. No, understanding him. David's lost everything. His job, his mistress, his image. Broken people break others. It's what they do. You lost everything, too. You didn't become cruel. Didn't I? Alexander's smile was sad. I spent 5 years planning revenge. If not for you, for Emma and Lucas, I'd have destroyed him already. Why haven't you? Because destruction leaves collateral damage, and those 2 children have been damaged enough. Sarah set down her brush, moved closer to him. We're a mess, aren't we? 2 broken people pretending to be whole. Maybe, he said. Or maybe 2 broken pieces that might fit together. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and danger. Then Lucas's cry broke it, a nightmare calling for his mother. Sarah went to her son Alexander, following. They found Lucas tangled in his sheets, tears on his face. Bad dream, baby. Daddy was taking me away. I couldn't find you. Sarah held him close, rocking him gently. Alexander sat on the other side of the bed, and Lucas reached for him, too. Story, Lucas requested. Alexander looked at Sarah, who nodded. He began telling a story about a brave knight and his 2 children fighting dragons and saving kingdoms. Lucas fell asleep before the happy ending, but Sarah heard it. The knight finding love again, the children growing strong and happy. That's a good story, she whispered. It could be, he agreed. The custody hearing was in 3 days. Ellen was confident, but Sarah couldn't shake her dread. David had been too quiet lately, which meant he was planning something. Her instinct proved right the next evening. She was helping Emma with homework when the doorbell rang. Alexander answered it. They'd agreed he should handle any surprises. But this surprise was one no one expected. "Hello, Alexander," a woman's voice said. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" Sarah came to the door and froze. The woman on the porch was elegant, beautiful, and looked exactly like the photos in Alexander's hidden room. She looked exactly like Catherine Blackwood. Alexander's dead wife was standing on Sarah's porch, very much alive. The world tilted on its axis. Sarah gripped the doorframe, her mind refusing to process what her eyes were seeing. Catherine Blackwood, blonde, delicate, supposedly dead for 5 years, stood on the porch in a designer coat and heels, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine rather than a grave. Alexander hadn't moved, hadn't breathed. His face was white, his gray eyes wide with shock that quickly transformed into something darker, more dangerous. "Hello, darling," Catherine said, her voice musical casual, as if she hadn't been dead for half a decade. "Aren't you going to say something? You're dead." Alexander's voice was flat, emotionless in a way that scared Sarah more than rage would have. "Clearly not." Catherine's laugh was tinkling false. "Though I understand the confusion." "Lily," Alexander said, and now there was emotion. Raw, desperate. "Where's Lily?" Catherine's perfect face faltered for just a moment. "Alexander." He moved then faster than Sarah had ever seen him move, grabbing Catherine's arms. "Where is my daughter?" "She's gone," Catherine said softly. "She was in the car. I wasn't. She's really gone, Alexander. I'm so sorry." Alexander released her like she was poisoned, stumbling back. Sarah instinctively moved toward him, but he held up a hand, stopping her. "Mom," Emma's voice from behind them. "What's happening?" "Go to your room, Em," Sarah said quickly. "Take Lucas." "But now." Emma grabbed her brother and disappeared upstairs. Sarah turned back to find Catherine studying her with calculating eyes. "So you're the replacement," Catherine said. A bit dowdy for Alexander's usual taste. "I'm calling the police," Sarah said, pulling out her phone. "Don't." Alexander's voice was still flat. "Not yet. Not until I understand." He stepped back, letting Catherine enter. She walked into Sarah's home like she owned it, examining everything with critical eyes. Suburban, quaint, very middle class. "What happened?" Alexander demanded. 5 years, Catherine. 5 years I mourned you both." Catherine settled onto the couch, crossing her legs elegantly. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicate it." She sighed as if this was all terribly inconvenient. "I was having an affair. With David Mitchell, actually. Small world, isn't it?" Sarah's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying clarity. "The night of the accident," Catherine continued, "I was supposed to be in the car with Lily. We were going to my mother's, but David called, said his wife was out of town. We could have the whole night. So I told the nanny to take Lily, said I'd meet them there." "The nanny," Alexander repeated. "Maria, who died in the crash along with Lily." "Yes. They misidentified the body as mine. Similar height, hair color. The car was so badly burned." Catherine shrugged. "When I heard about the accident, I was with David. I couldn't exactly come forward without explaining why I wasn't in the car." "So you let me believe you were dead." Alexander's control was cracking. "You let me bury you. Mourn you. I couldn't face you. The guilt about Lily, the affair. David helped me disappear. New identity, new life. He's been paying for everything." Sarah's mind was racing. "That's why he was embezzling. He was funding your disappearance." Catherine looked at her with surprise. "Clever little mouse." "Yes, exactly." "But why come back now?" Alexander asked. "Because David's lost everything. The money's dried up, and I heard about this engagement." She gestured between Alexander and Sarah. "I couldn't let you move on without knowing the truth." "The truth?" Alexander laughed, bitter and sharp. "The truth is you're a monster. You let me blame myself for 5 years. I thought I should have been driving that night. Should have insisted we all go together. The guilt nearly killed me." "I know," Catherine said softly. "I'm sorry." "Sorry." Alexander stood pacing like a caged animal. "You're sorry our daughter is dead because you chose your affair over her. And you're sorry. I loved her too." "Don't." His voice was lethal. "Don't you dare speak about her. You lost that right when you let her get in that car without you." Sarah's phone buzzed. "David." She answered without thinking. "Hello, Sarah. I assume you've met our guest?" "You knew? You knew she was alive this whole time?" "Of course I knew. I've been supporting her for 5 years. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to keep someone dead? But now that Alexander's taken everything from me, I thought it only fair to return the favor." "You're sick." "I'm practical. Catherine's return changes everything, doesn't it? Alexander's not a widower anymore. He's a man whose wife left him, abandoned him. That's a different story for the courts, isn't it?" Sarah hung up. Alexander was staring at Catherine with an expression she'd never seen before. Pure hatred. "You're working with him. This is about the custody case." Catherine shrugged. "David promised to restore my access to funds if I helped. I need money, Alexander. I can't keep living like this. Like what, alive while our daughter is dead? I made a mistake." "A mistake," Alexander's voice rose. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You chose another man over our child's safety." Emma appeared on the stairs. "Is everything okay? We heard yelling." "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Sarah said quickly. "Go back to your room." But Emma was staring at Catherine. "You look like the lady in Alexander's photos, but she's dead." "Not quite, darling," Catherine said. Emma's analytical mind was working. Sarah could see her processing understanding. "You left," Emma said to Catherine. "You left your little girl, and she died." Catherine flinched. "It's complicated." "No, it's not." Emma's voice was steady, mature beyond her years. "Parents are supposed to protect their children. You didn't." She turned and walked back upstairs with dignity that would have made Sarah proud if she wasn't so worried about Alexander, who looked like he might shatter. "I should go," Catherine said, standing. "Yes," Alexander said. "You should. And Catherine, if you come near Sarah or her children again, I'll destroy you. I'll tell the world what you did. How you let our daughter die for an affair with a married man." "You wouldn't. The scandal? I don't care about scandal anymore. I care about protecting the family I'm building now." Catherine looked between them, something flickering in her eyes. Jealousy, maybe. Or regret. "He'll never love you," she told Sarah. "He's broken. I broke him." "Maybe," Sarah said, finding her voice. "But broken things can heal. Dead things can't." Catherine left, and the silence she left behind was deafening. Alexander stood frozen in Sarah's living room, his carefully constructed world in ruins around him. "Alexander," Sarah said softly. "Don't." He moved toward the door. I need to go. Please don't leave." He stopped. "Why?" "Because Catherine's wrong. You're not broken. You're healing. And because David brought her here to destroy us both. If you leave now, he wins." Alexander turned to face her. "She was alive. This whole time she was alive, and I mourned her. I mourned them both, but she was just living, spending the money David stole, probably laughing at my grief. I'm so sorry. Lily would be 10 now, Emma's age. She'd be—" His voice broke. Sarah went to him, then wrapped her arms around him. He resisted for a moment, then collapsed into her, this powerful man brought to his knees by the cruelest revelation imaginable. "She chose him," he whispered into her shoulder. "She chose David Mitchell over our daughter's safety." "And Lily paid the price," Sarah said, her own tears falling. "Just like Emma and Lucas are paying for David's choices now." Alexander pulled back, looking at her with sudden clarity. "That's why he did this. Not just to hurt me, but to destroy your custody case. If I'm dealing with Catherine, I can't help you. Then we don't let him win. We face this together." "Sarah," Alexander cupped her face gently. "This isn't your fight. Isn't it David destroyed your family? Now he's trying to destroy mine. That makes it our fight." Before Alexander could respond, Lucas appeared trailing his stuffed dinosaur. "Why is everyone sad?" he asked. Alexander knelt down to Lucas's level. "Sometimes adults get sad about things that happened before. Like when Mommy cries about Grandpa. Yes, like that." Lucas studied him seriously, then held out his dinosaur. "Mr. Rex helps when I'm sad. You can borrow him." Alexander's eyes filled with tears as he accepted the worn stuffed animal. "Thank you, Lucas. That's very kind. Will you still come to my school play? I'm a tree." "Wouldn't miss it," Alexander managed. After the children were finally asleep, it took 3 stories and promises that everything would be okay. Sarah found Alexander on the porch, still holding Lucas's dinosaur. "He's a special kid," Alexander said. "They both are." Sarah sat beside him. "Emma's probably Googling what to do when your mom's boyfriend's dead wife isn't dead right now." Alexander actually laughed, short but genuine. "God, what have we dragged them into?" "A mess, but maybe something good too." He looked at her, then really looked at her. "How are you so strong?" "I'm not. I'm terrified. But I've learned that sometimes you have to be brave even when you're breaking." "Is that what we're doing? Being brave?" "I think so. Or maybe we're just too stubborn to let David win." Alexander's phone rang. Ellen Stanford. "I heard about Catherine," Ellen said without preamble. "David's already filed an emergency motion. He's claiming Alexander is unstable, that the revelation about his wife makes him unsuitable to be around the children." "That's ridiculous," Sarah protested. "Of course it is, but it muddies the waters. Judge Williamson already favors David. This gives him more ammunition. So what do? We fight back with truth. Catherine abandoned her child, which resulted in the child's death. She's been living under a false identity funded by embezzled money. That's fraud, conspiracy, possibly manslaughter by negligence. We turn their weapon against them." After Ellen hung up, Alexander was quiet. "Using Lily's death as a legal strategy," he said. "She deserves better." "She deserves justice," Sarah said firmly, "and to not be used by the people who caused her death." The next morning brought a circus. Somehow the press had gotten wind of Catherine's return. Photographers camped outside Sarah's house, Alexander's office, even the children's school. "Billionaire's dead wife returns," screamed the headlines. Emma was anxious, not wanting to go to school. Lucas was confused by all the attention. Sarah was ready to murder David with her bare hands. Alexander arrived early with his PR team and security. "We're getting you out of here," he said. "All of you. We're my estate in the Hamptons. It's secure private. The children can attend the local school there temporarily." "I can't just uproot them." "Sarah," Alexander took her hands. "David's escalating. Catherine was just the beginning. I have intelligence that he's planning something bigger. Please, let me protect you all." She looked at her children. Emma chewing her nails, Lucas clinging to his dinosaur. "Okay, we'll go." The Hampton estate was a revelation. Not the cold mansion Sarah had expected, but a warm, sprawling house overlooking the ocean. There was an art studio with perfect light, a library that made Emma gasp, and a workshop where Alexander apparently built his robots. "This was my grandmother's house," Alexander explained. "The only place that doesn't have memories of before." They settled into a routine. The children attended the local school, which was used to protecting celebrity kids' privacy. Sarah painted in the studio, producing piece after piece, exercising her demons in color and form. Alexander worked from home, always present, but never intrusive. And slowly, something shifted. It started with small things. Alexander teaching Lucas to build simple robots. Emma showing him her writing, trusting him with her creative dreams. Family dinners where laughter gradually replaced tension. Sarah watched Alexander bloom under the children's attention. The shadows in his eyes lightened. He smiled more, even laughed, when Lucas made his robots dance to ridiculous songs. One evening she found him in Lily's room. He'd had one here too, untouched for 5 years. He was packing things into boxes, not erasing her, but making peace. "Need help," she offered. "Please." They worked in companionable silence, carefully wrapping toys and clothes. Sarah found a drawing, a child's scrawl of a family labeled Daddy, Mommy, Me. Alexander traced it gently. She was just starting to write. "We were so proud. Tell me about her. Not the loss, but her life." So he did. Stories poured out. Lily's first words, robot, naturally, her obsession with butterflies, how she used to hide in his office during board meetings and pop out to scare executives. She would have loved Emma and Lucas, he said. Emma would have been her role model. Lucas would have been her partner in crime. They would have loved her, too. They were standing close now, the setting sun painting the room gold. Alexander reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind Sarah's ear. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. This started as a business arrangement, but—" "I know," she interrupted. "For me, too. You know that I'm falling in love with you. Yes, terrifyingly aware." He kissed her, then soft and careful like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "Is this crazy?" Sarah asked. Probably, but the sanest things I've done lately have all involved you. Emma's voice interrupted them. Mom, Alexander dinner's ready. They came downstairs to find the children had attempted cooking pasta with a very unique sauce that seemed to involve ketchup and optimism. We wanted to surprise you, Lucas announced proudly. You've been sad, Emma added, looking at Alexander. We thought food would help. Alexander pulled both children into a hug. It helps more than you know. They ate the terrible pasta with enthusiasm, and Sarah realized this was what family felt like. Not perfect, but real. Ellen called that night with news. The judge wants to interview the children, separately with a court-appointed psychologist. Sarah's stomach dropped. Tomorrow, I'll be there, but you can't coach them. They need to speak their truth. Sarah barely slept. The next morning, she drove the children back to Westchester for their interviews, Alexander following in his car for support, but maintaining distance as Ellen advised. Emma went first, spending an hour with Dr. Morrison, the court psychologist. She came out composed, but pale. How was it, honey? I told the truth, Emma said simply. About Dad, about you, about Alexander. All of it. Lucas went next, returning with red eyes. The lady asked if I want to live with Daddy, he said. I said no. Was that bad? No, baby. That was honest. Dr. Morrison asked to speak with Sarah privately. Your children are remarkable, she said, especially Emma. Her emotional intelligence is exceptional. Thank you. She told me something interesting. She said her father never really saw her, just the idea of her. But Alexander sees her for who she is. Children know when they're truly seen, Mrs. Mitchell. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. They deserve to be seen. Yes, they do. I'll have my report to the judge by Monday. Outside, David waited by his car. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the polished exterior finally cracking. Sarah, he called. We need to talk. No, we don't. Please. The arrogance was gone. 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, she approached, staying out of arm's reach. Catherine left, he said, took what money I had left and disappeared again. Am I supposed to feel sorry for you? No, I wanted to win so badly I lost everything that mattered. You lost that when you chose to destroy our family instead of fixing it. David looked at the courthouse. I'm going to prison, aren't I, for the embezzlement? Probably. Will you let me see them? The kids supervised whatever the court decides, but something... Sarah studied the man she'd once loved, now diminished and defeated. That's up to the judge, and them. I know I've been a terrible father. Stop! Sarah's voice was firm. You don't get to have this epiphany now when you've lost. You had years to be a good father. You chose otherwise. She walked away toward Alexander, who waited by his car, solid and real and present. You okay? He asked. Getting there. Monday came too quickly. The courtroom was packed. Pressed despite the judge's orders. David's family, Alexander's mother, Margaret, even Jessica Chen there to testify if needed. Judge Williamson entered, his expression unreadable. I've reviewed all evidence testimonies and Dr. Morrison's report, he began. This case has been unusual, to say the least. Sarah held her breath. Mr. Mitchell, your actions throughout these proceedings have been concerning. The false allegations, the manipulation of evidence, the involvement of Mrs. Catherine Blackwood in what appears to be an attempt to manipulate this court. David's lawyer started to object, but the judge silenced him. Furthermore, the evidence of embezzlement and fraud is substantial. While criminal charges are separate from this custody matter, they speak to character. He turned to Sarah. Mrs. Mitchell, your relationship with Mr. Blackwood raised initial concerns about judgment and stability. However, the evidence suggests a thoughtful, gradual introduction that prioritized the children's well-being. Sarah reached for Alexander's hand under the table. Most importantly, the judge continued, the children themselves have been clear. Emma Mitchell in particular showed remarkable insight into her family dynamics. She stated, and I quote, "My mom isn't perfect, but she loves us more than herself. My dad loves us when it's convenient. I want to live with the person who puts us first." David made a sound like he'd been punched. Therefore, I award full physical custody to Mrs. Mitchell with supervised visitation for Mr. Mitchell pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. Furthermore, given the evidence of hidden assets, Mr. Mitchell will pay substantial child support and alimony. The gavel came down. It was over. Sarah turned to her children who'd been allowed in for the verdict. Emma was crying. Lucas was confused, but happy because Emma was happy. Alexander stood back, letting them have their moment, but Emma reached for him. "You too," she said. "You're part of this now." Later at home, really home now without fear, they had a quiet celebration. Pizza and ice cream, Lucas's choices. Emma curled against Sarah on the couch, the anxiety that had lived in her shoulders for months finally easing. "Mom," Emma said, "are you and Alexander getting married for real now?" Sarah looked at Alexander, who was on the floor with Lucas building an elaborate robot army. "I don't know, honey. We're taking things slow." "Good," Emma said. "Real things should take time." That night, after the children were asleep, Sarah found Alexander in the art studio she'd set up in the guest room. He was looking at her latest painting, a phoenix rising from ashes but made of clock gears and broken hearts, reformed into something beautiful. "It's us," he said simply. "It's all of us, rising from what tried to destroy us." He turned to her. "Sarah, I need to say something. The engagement, it was supposed to be fake, but—" "Alexander, no, let me finish. Catherine coming back, seeing her alive. It didn't make me want her. It made me realize how much I want you and Emma and Lucas. This family we're building from broken pieces." Sarah's heart raced. "What are you saying?" He pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, not huge or ostentatious, but perfect. An antique setting with a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I'm saying that fake engagement should become real, not for revenge or custody or anything else, just for us. Alexander, it was my grandmother's ring. She survived 2 wars, lost everything twice, and built it back better each time. Like you." Sarah looked at this man who'd entered her life in the darkest moment and somehow became her light. "The children love me, apparently. Lucas informed me yesterday that I'm almost as cool as his dinosaurs, which I'm told is the highest honor." Sarah laughed through tears. "That is pretty high praise. And Emma asked if she could call me her Alexander at school. Not Dad never replacing David, but hers." "She did? She did. So what do you say, Sarah Mitchell? Will you make this disaster of a fake engagement into a real marriage?" Sarah thought about the journey, from that horrible morning finding David's texts to this moment standing with a man who saw her strength when she felt only weakness. "Yes," she said, "but on one condition." "What's that?" "We do it right. Slow. Let the children adjust. Let us adjust. Real love, not revenge." "Real love," Alexander agreed, sliding the ring onto her finger. "Though I do enjoy that it will infuriate David." Sarah laughed. "That's just a bonus." They were married 6 months later in the Hampton House's garden. Emma was maid of honor Lucas the ring-bearer who forgot the rings and had to run back for them, causing everyone to laugh. Margaret Blackwood cried, which she claimed was allergies. Thomas Reed walked Sarah down the aisle, revealing finally that he'd been her father's best friend, watching over her all along. Jessica Chen came sober 6 months and working to rebuild her life. She approached Sarah at the reception. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything." "I know," Sarah replied. "And strangely, if you hadn't done what you did, I wouldn't have found Alexander. So thank you in a weird way." David was serving 3 years minimum security for embezzlement. He sent a letter to the children which Emma chose to read, and Lucas ignored. Small steps. As Sarah danced with her new husband Emma and Lucas spinning wildly nearby, she thought about broken things, how they could break you or make you stronger, how the cracks could let light in. "What are you thinking?" Alexander asked. "That Catherine was wrong. You're not broken. You're a kintsukuroi, Japanese art where broken pottery is mended with gold. The breaking is part of the history, not something to hide." "We all are," he said, pulling her closer. "Broken and mended, and more beautiful for it." Lucas crashed into them, demanding to be picked up. Emma rolled her eyes, but joined the group hug. And in that moment, Sarah understood that family wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other again and again through breaking and mending and everything in between. The portrait she painted later would hang in their home for decades. 4 figures dancing made of shattered pieces put back together with gold, forming something entirely new and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. She titled it simply Home. In the end, David had been wrong about everything. Sarah hadn't let herself go. She'd let herself grow. She hadn't been delusional about her art, She'd been waiting for the right inspiration, and she hadn't been a ghost in their marriage. She'd been a phoenix waiting for the fire that would let her rise. And rise she did with her children with Alexander into a life that was nothing like she'd planned and everything she'd never known she needed. The best revenge, it turned out, wasn't destruction. It was living well, loving deeply, and creating beauty from the ashes of what tried to break you. 5 years later, Emma Mitchell Blackwood, 15, stands at a podium addressing a conference on youth mental health. "Anxiety isn't weakness," she says, poised and confident. "It's your mind trying to protect you. The key is learning when to listen and when to reassure it that you're safe." In the audience, Sarah wipes tears Alexander's hand in hers. Lucas, 11, is secretly playing a game on his phone until Emma catches his eye and he grins sheepishly. "My parents' divorce could have destroyed me," Emma continues. "Instead, it taught me that sometimes things need to break before they can be rebuilt stronger. My mom showed me courage. My dad showed me what happens when you let fear and pride control you. And my stepdad, though I just call him Alexander, showed me that love isn't about blood or time or perfection. It's about showing up." After the speech, David approaches. He's been out for 2 years rebuilding his life, slowly working as an accountant for a nonprofit. The arrogance is gone, replaced by something quieter, more genuine. "She was amazing," he tells Sarah. "She always has been. You just had to be willing to see it." "I know. I see it now." He pauses. "Thank you for letting me be here." "Thank her," Sarah says, nodding to Emma. "She's the one who sent you the invitation." David's eyes fill. "She's stronger than both of us." "She had to be," Sarah says, not unkindly. "But she shouldn't have had to be. Remember that." David nods and walks away. Alexander appears with hot chocolate for everyone. He's learned all their comfort drinks over the years. "Ready to go home?" he asks. Home is bigger now, not just the house, but the family. There's baby Catherine, 2 years old, named for the sister Alexander lost, but representing the future they're building. She has Sarah's artistic eye and Alexander's determined chin. Margaret Blackwood has moved into the guest house, claiming she needs to supervise her grandchildren, but really just unable to stay away from the family that brought her son back to life. "Can we stop for ice cream?" Lucas asks. "It's February," Emma points out. "Ice cream doesn't have seasons," Lucas argues. "He's got a point," Alexander says. Sarah laughs, this woman who was once afraid she'd lost everything. She looks at her family, complicated, messy, rebuilt from ruins, and knows the truth. You can't always choose what breaks you, but you can choose how you rebuild. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, what you rebuild is infinitely better than what you lost. They pile into the car, arguing about ice cream flavors, Emma texting the boy she swears is just a friend. Lucas explaining his latest robot-designed baby, Catherine babbling nonsense that everyone pretends to understand. Sarah catches Alexander's eye in the rearview mirror. He winks, and she knows he's thinking the same thing. They won. Not against David, not against the past, but for themselves, for this family, for this beautifully imperfect life. And that's the best revenge of all. Thank you for joining Sarah's journey from betrayal to triumph. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, love, and the power of choosing your own family, please like and subscribe for more emotional journeys every week. Remember, sometimes the best things in life come from the most broken beginnings. Until next time, keep believing in second chances and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds.